Hey, this is AEE bringing you the latest episode of The Accelerator. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the latest in education news.
Hello everyone, my name is Chris Ferns and welcome back to the Accelerator podcast, bringing you the latest in everything education. Today we've got two guests with us. We have Kim and Megan joining us from Redwood School. Thanks for coming on to the podcast, guys. Really appreciate it. Tell the audience about yourselves, who you are, what you do.
I am Megan Narisimhan. I'm the Vice Principal of Redwood College La Lucia. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course.
It's a privilege just to be here and to share with you guys.
Awesome.
I am Kimberly Ray Kejuka. I am in grade 10. I go to Redwood as well. I do IEB and I'm here to share my study tips.
Fantastic. Awesome. So, as Kim just said, we're going to be talking about study tips. It's exam time, students are writing, it's a period of stress, anxiety, worry. Have I studied enough? What exams do I have this week? I have 7 of them, so on and so forth. What's the vibe at the moment? Are students panicking? Are they worried? Is there an air of confidence? What are you guys seeing in the school and talk from students and whatnot?
I think there is a lot of nerves because it's the final exam for the year. It's often considered the make or break. So if you have not performed well throughout the year, this is it.
Yes.
It's your last shot. But I think for students that have been consistent, I do still see nerves, but I think they're a little bit more relaxed.
Okay. And amongst fellow students?
Well, for me personally, it's very stressful. I'm just that type of person. With my classmates, I'm going to be honest, it seems a bit relaxed,
Okay.
to be honest, this past week. So that also makes me stressed as well because everyone's more chilled than usual. So I'm wondering what's going on. But yeah, for
Awesome.
me it's stressed too.
Yeah, it's encouraging to hear that students are having a bit of an air of calm around them and they're feeling confident about it. When I was a student and writing exams, I know it was nerves 24/7 and sweating and staying up far later than I should and whatnot. So we wanted to talk about study strategy. There's thousands of students across the country writing exams, and it's not always obvious to a lot of students how they should be going about studying, what they should be doing to enhance their learning time, and how to go about doing that sort of thing. What just generally is some advice you can give for study time now that exams have come around?
I think before we go into tips, I want to take a step back because I think what precedes exam preparation, that's what I call it, is ongoing learning. So it's the day-to-day practices that the student puts in place. It's that effective learning that precedes effective study strategies. Because, I mean, we've all been students.
Yes.
And we know what it is to spot the night before and how ineffective and how stressful that is.
Absolutely.
But effective learning, when it is built on ongoing learning, it's not that there isn't stress. I think you are in a better position to better prepare yourself for your examinations. So for me, when I think about ongoing learning, I already mentioned this, it's the day-to-day things that the students do. It is not leaving stuff for the last minute. It's understanding. And when we look at the online school and how it is set up, there are weekly submissions, and I believe it's designed in that way to ensure kids are engaging. So the students are engaging with their content. And when I look at the AC program, there's a similarity in that because as a student, what do you have to do? You've got to set your goals daily. Likewise, with the online school, you have weekly deadlines. So there is that important aspect of I've got to keep to my deadlines this week. I have to complete my goals for each day. And I think for me, where it becomes difficult is that students often can't differentiate between active engagement and passive engagement.
Okay.
So I find I sit with a kid they may not be performing as they desire, and I will ask, what are you doing? In my mind, I've already got an answer. A lot of the time, the learning involves just reading. That's where it starts and stops. Reading is a foundation for learning, but that's not where it ends, because when you actively engage with your content, it's much broader, it's much deeper, because you have deeper, richer understanding of what you're learning.
Okay, interesting. So you saying that the secret to study time is to have developed the habit of
100%.
long-term engagement with your content, making it a bit of a habit to study throughout the year,
Yes.
rather than come exam time and full-on focus and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. We all have days where we don't feel well. It might not be a great day, whatever the reason may be. And I say to my students, put stuff in the reserve tank. There's going to be a day where you're not feeling well, so you can't complete that task, or you can't get to that activity. But if you are consistent, you're dedicated, that one day is not going to affect your entire learning journey. But what does often happen is it's the opposite way around. We have students who will wait before the examinations to prepare. So you take in a year's worth of work, or 2 terms worth of work, or several weeks worth of work, and trying to condense it into 2 days, a few days, a week, and trying to memorize that information. If you don't understand what you are memorizing, it's not going to sink in. And actually what happens is you walk into that exam room and you have a mad panic. That is what I've observed. And it's not with every kid, because we do have kids who implement effective learning and studying strategies. Kim is here for that very reason, because I've observed it. And not just with her, with other students. And I firmly believe that every student is capable of it. I go back to what I said. It's what are you doing every single day? I'm not saying spend all of your time with your books. Go and do sport. Go and get involved with cultural activities. Have a break. Do stuff that you enjoy, because when you talk to any teenager, it's like anticlimactic when you start saying, "I'm gonna spend time studying." There is this impression that you get that it's boring. But that often happens when you're not actively engaging with your content. Taking what you're learning and finding real life value in it. And I think it is a sad reality of our education system, because learning is often results into or leads to this passive mindset, because they don't make those connections. Why am I learning poetry in English? Why am I learning algebra in math? We can go through all the list of subjects, but there is real life value. And if I think about it personally, where I am today, a lot of what I learned in school I am applying on my day-to-day basis. When I write a letter to families, when I'm editing something, when I'm dealing with content, it starts from there. It doesn't end, because I've got control over my learning. It's what I want to do with my learning, how far I want to take it. So I don't know if I'm veering too off topic, but
No, that's fantastic. I think you've really brought home how important it is to make a habit of learning on a day-to-day basis and applying what we learn from school or university or whatever it may be, because you get to that end of the year and now I suddenly have to start applying all this knowledge, and I haven't been doing that up until now, and it's stress and it's anxiety and it's worry. But let's say a student has now, throughout the whole year, they've gone and applied everything they've learned, they've done the studious thing and practiced everything they learn on a daily basis. We now get to exam time. And Kim, I'd love for you to share with us your study strategy. Now that we've reached this exam time, what can we do now to build an effective study strategy as students? And I'd love for you to share with us how you've done it.
Okay. So when I was talking to Mrs. Narisimhan about it, I noticed we have very similar study methods. So as she said, ongoing learning. So we have weekly tasks that we need to do. And so I always make a planner of what I'm going to do, because some people they just want to get the work done, over and done with, But you need to understand that everything that you do throughout the year will impact your exam, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So using using the materials that you have to study for the exams as well. So I go through old worksheets from previous weeks. I go through past tests, past exams, because I noticed that they are laid out similar. So then when I do get to the exam, I'm like, oh, it's not really a shock, because I recognize the layout, and that helps a lot. And what I do is, so on the online school, the lessons are all online. And normally people just read through the work online, but having a physical copy of the work is very important. So I copy the content on the lessons, paste it on a Word document, and then print it out, and then highlight the important stuff. And I read through it. And when I read, I don't just read and go blah, 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 but I say it out loud as if I'm teaching someone. Because if I understand what I'm learning, then I have nothing to really worry about.
Of course.
So what helps me personally is I teach my mom. So the day before the exam, I'll say, right, I'm writing accounting tomorrow. So I teach her all the theory, how to do certain stuff. And so, as I said, if I'm able to explain that work to my mom, then I'll be fine. And also what helps me is when I'm confused with work during the weeks before the exams, I make sure to go ask the teachers. And I know people are normally embarrassed or scared. I used to be like that, but I realized that it's not helping me if I just say, oh, okay, it's fine, I'll just get this certain question wrong. But making sure that I understand what's going on. And as well as adding purpose, as Mrs. Narisimhan said, it makes it easier, it makes it more doable if I apply what I'm learning to real events in the world. So last year when I was doing natural science, we were learning about the body systems. So when I learned, okay, this is why sometimes I get a headache, or oh, this is how I breathe. It makes it interesting, and I really enjoyed that subject. And because of the way I studied, I got a good mark because I put it into practical stuff that we do on a daily basis. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. I think what I personally took away from that is that there's so much benefit in being able to practically apply knowledge. When you teach your mother, in order to teach a subject or some topic or whatnot, you need to have an intimate understanding of it. And it's the same when you write papers. And I think in that regard, past papers are so effective because you're applying that knowledge in a practical way. And I think that would be to a lot of learners' benefits. I know especially when I was still in school, and even then they were saying, oh, past papers. And having that practical application is really beneficial, because then you taking that knowledge, applying it, and showing yourself, okay, I'm able to not only understand that knowledge, but I'm now also to apply it to real world situations. And I think that's something that a lot of students could definitely benefit from. When it comes to sitting down and learning the material, whatever form that may take, what is the best way to build a study environment? How do students go about building an environment for themselves which is beneficial for their study time? Because I know some students work better with music, some prefer absolute silence. So how can we go about ensuring that as students we have the best possible environment to learn in?
I think it begins with understanding your needs, creating that environment, having a study space, whether it's a desk in your room. I would advise, if it is a student that struggles, right there in the dining room. I studied in the kitchen for most of my high school career, because if I studied in my bedroom, and I happen to be sitting down, I would fall asleep. So I learned I'm either standing or I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and I've got pages pasted all over my bedroom doors, and I'm writing notes and I'm teaching myself
Yes.
content. So I think it's understanding what's best practice. What I firmly believe in is a student I spoke about active engagement, but when you engage in yourself, there is a difference. So creating a space for yourself, but making sure it's a space where you're going to constantly be engaged, whether you're sitting on one of those exercise balls, whatever it is, to keep your mind and your body engaged in your learning.
Okay.
I think there is research that speaks against using music when you're learning because of the distraction that it can cause. I've personally used music, but I think it's the type of music that you use when you're learning. So yeah, having that environment that allows you to learn. I know Kim spoke about what her setup. She mentioned about a whiteboard with her learning. I think that's a very effective tool. But yeah, that environment is important. Having a schedule is important, because understanding what papers you have to write and how much time you need to spend preparing for those exams, access to past papers, previous tests, activities and so forth is also very, very helpful. And I think the most important thing in between all of that is note-taking. So when you're setting up this environment, the problem I often find students find themselves in, and I've mentioned it, but I'm going to reiterate, is simply reading from a textbook. But you have to write what you are learning, because that's where you're making meaning. You are writing your understanding of what you are learning.
Okay, great, fantastic. So we've spoken a lot about how students can strategize and how they can build an environment for themselves and what the best way to go about tackling exam time is. Now, if I'm a parent or a guardian and I've got a son or daughter writing exams, what can I do to help make their study time, exam time easier for them? What can I do to assist them in any way?
I often laugh at this because, especially with kids that are in grade 12, the common phrase that I hear is, so-and-so is in grade 12, but we all feel like we're writing matric. It is often a sacrifice from the entire family, because there's so-and-so is studying and preparing for the exams. And if I reflect back when I was in grade 12, that was the constant. Just put the TV softer. I'm trying to concentrate. So I think it's understanding it's not forever, but creating and assisting in creating that environment that is conducive for studying. I think it's the meals, it's the additional vitamins or whatever it is that the student needs, but also asking the student what do they need to help them prepare. I think that's a good place to start, because bearing in mind that every child is different. So if a child is maybe, for example, struggling, if they need the extra assistance of a tutor. I know when I was in grade 12, I had to get an Afrikaans tutor, KZN and Afrikaans.
Yes.
And that did assist me, because I needed that person to come alongside me with parts of my study, not all of it. So yeah, that's just what I think.
Yeah, I think a great deal of openness and transparency and communication is definitely essential when it comes to parents engaging with their children during exam time. I know when I was a student and I was studying for matric exams, my parents just said to me, right, you're studying exams, we're not going to bother you for the next 2 or 3 weeks. just tell us what you need at what time of the day you need it, and it'll happen. And that's really what worked for me. But as you've mentioned once or twice already, every student's different. So I think in order to have that positive parental engagement, it's so important to have that openness. Say, I'm writing exams. As my parents, would you please help me with this during this time? Is it possible to do this? This is what I need, so on and so forth. Next thing I wanted to talk about was, even though learners may have prepared, they may have studied their hardest, have engaged with their parents, exam time is a very big time of the year. And despite the preparation and the assistance and so on and so forth, there can still be a level of nerves and anxiety and that sort of thing. And Kim, I'd love to hear from you. Are you feeling nerves about the whole exam situation?
Yes.
How are you managing to deal with that or tackling those nerves and anxiety?
So I must be honest, last year it was bad. I wouldn't give myself breaks and I would overstudy. And even my teachers were like, Kim, you need to take a break. So this year I really tried to balance my schedule because I struggle with the nerves, and because I can work so hard. It's happened before. I worked so hard for my math exam and then my mark didn't reflect how hard I worked. So I was worried of repeating the same thing. So I said I have to work even harder. But what I didn't think about was that it takes a toll on your physical health as well. And giving yourself breaks when you study. And
Absolutely.
it is very important, which is what I didn't do last year. And so even if it's like a 10 minute break, just go outside, get some fresh air, and understand, because even like the June exams, because I can study very hard, but then on the day the nerves are like it's insane, you know, and then all of a sudden I forget my work, and that's what I want to avoid this time. So having that confidence that I have prepared well, but then also not too much confidence, because you can get into an exam and be like, oh, I'm fine. But then also, you know, being humble as well. So yeah, taking breaks, having water around you. And what helps me when I study is if I'm in a clean environment.
Absolutely.
I feel calmer. Once again, last year it wasn't really good. I had papers all over my table. Yeah, and I stick up on my wall. I have quotes and just sayings like calm down, you know, because I need that reminder.
Yes, absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, I think as learners, it's become so easy to fall in the trap of, I need to study endlessly. If I take a 5-minute break, it's all over. But then it's also incredibly easy to just fall into the trap of, I need to step away and I need to take a break and I need to go do this, and this. And finding that balance, as you said, is so important, because as students, you can't forget that you are human at the end of the day, and you need to study hard and you need to work hard, but you have to have those breaks and you have to take care of yourself. If you're hungry and dehydrated and you haven't stepped outside in 3 days, it's not going to help you at all, is it?
Can I just add?
Of course.
You know, when I'm listening to what Kim has been sharing, and I'm thinking about, because for me this just contemplating and thinking about, you know, this topic of effective study strategies, it caused me, you know, to reflect personally so much.
Yes.
And just relive all the moments when I was in high school and university and studying. And I'll never forget when I was in my matric year, before I went out every single morning to school, because I had to walk to school, not like many students nowadays.
Yes.
Get a lift to school. But before I left home, you know, we had a CD player then, not phones that played music. I played a Casting Crown song every single morning before I went out. There were 2 songs that I toggled between. The Voice of Truth was the one that I consistently played, and it was because I struggled with that voice in my head that constantly told me that you're not going to do well, you're going to fail. And I literally had to find a way to silence that. And I do believe, I firmly believe it, and even as I reflect through my own academic journey, that God has been present through it all. So if I could say above all of the other tips and ongoing learning, I do believe faith in Christ is probably the most important thing. We may not realize how important worship and reading our Bible and prayer is for our academic journey, but it is also rest. It is also, okay, I need to take a break from studying. Go put on a worship song. Go read a Bible scripture. Go and pray. And I know teenagers, if they're listening to this, will probably be like, oh my gosh, so super spiritual. But I've seen the benefit of it, because in that moment, it puts me at ease. I get peace from it because I'm connecting with my Savior. And I cannot emphasize how much. I actually think, I wish there was more research on this, but I actually do believe that my faith in Christ has made me more, what I would rather say, more smarter, and actually help me with my study strategies. Because when you constantly putting yourself at the grind and trying, I'm going to solve this, but when you come to Christ and you say, oh Lord, I'm actually struggling with this math solution, He gives you the courage to go and ask somebody to help you. This day and age, our kids have the most access to information. You go into YouTube and there's an endless amount of videos for them to go and revise math concepts, English, blah, 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 blah. So the access to information is there. Sometimes we just need that prompting and that stillness to remind us, I'm with you. Go and try this. And from personal experience, I've had that, and I know that is probably, to me, the most important thing.
Sure, that's really profound. I think, and I was definitely guilty of this myself when I was a student, but I think when it comes to this period of exams and stress and worry, it's so easy to put everything else aside, including our time with God and making time for our faith and our prayer and that sort of thing. And as you say, I think it's really important that even if it's just for a moment a day, before an exam, during a 10-minute break, we make that time to engage with God and pray for that calmness and the strength and everything else we need to get through that exam period. So I think, as you said, above all else, that's super important as well. I think that's a fantastic place to end this off. Just final thoughts. I think there's a lot that parents and learners can take away from this. And I'm so glad that we've had the opportunity to share things from the perspective of an educator and from a student. I think it'll be really insightful for the parents and the learners at home. And thank you guys so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. It's been incredible, insightful, and I'm hoping this will be really beneficial for lots of people across the country. For those of you watching this at home, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you love what you've heard, make sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube to get the latest scoop on everything education.